Hey guys, Stealth here. In this video you're gonna see me get wiped out. And not lightly, you're gonna see me get heavily wiped out. We're playing on Petty Field and I'm playing with Flashpoint and Buck. The enemy is a clan. They're coordinated heavily through Teamspeak where we weren't, so we got that going against us. What happened in this game is that I was trying to capture this town with a Norwegian motorized deck. It's a deck that I was testing out, seeing if it was any good. It has a lot of infantry, as most motorized decks, so my main battle area is going to be these forests and capturing the towns. And as you can see, it's a conquest game, so we need to get those zones under our control as soon as possible. So here starts my spawn column. I'm gonna push this up a little. Most of these units are being brought in the XA186 or the 180, which is pretty much the same vehicle, except that the 186 has a little bit more armor. I'm going with some standard infantry, or well, standard infantry for me in this deck is special forces, so Volkskomjäger. I got some storm engineers, I got some AA units in here, a couple of NM195s, also more AA units. A couple of recon Chaffees, the NM116, and with this push I'm just happily going to capture these bases, or so I thought. That is, until this showed up. This team is going to do a very heavy push onto my terrain with a lot of units, and they are not going to care about capturing any kind of area. This is a couple of BMPs, a couple of T-80Us, so very expensive material here. That's the first push. I believe that these guys are from Mamanatort, and these guys are from Illuminatus Fighter. He is also pushing with a couple of helicopters, and that's the first thing that my column is going to meet. My NM145s are the Oerlikon trucks, and they are going to go to engage these units, but of course low armor, not exactly great guns, not fast enough to kill them. Other units getting wiped out here. Immediately I push my units back into the forest here to make sure they at least have some cover. And the NM195 is also engaging the Mi-24s here. But they just keep coming. By now we are leading by +2 because I captured this area, and my teammates over here are still working on capturing the other areas. Now this is what I saw. I thought, okay, this is probably just a push where they want to try and get this terrain, cut me off here so I cannot enter India. Fair enough. So I was getting ready to set up here in in Bravo, with some infantry supporting from these woods so that they couldn't get into India either. At least that's what I thought. And you can see that I'm being double teamed here. This is units from both Illuminatus Fighter and Mama Atort. So I have two players teaming up on me. And it wasn't specifically me that they wanted to get, it was just this area. And you're gonna see why. By now we're leading by +6. So at this point I'm thinking, okay, it's not too bad. We have a couple of command zones, we have more than they do, clearly, otherwise we wouldn't have that big of a lead. But then the T-80U starts showing up, and this deck does not have any kind of long-range capability against against tanks. It just doesn't have any ATGMs mounted on helicopters because you don't get any helicopters in the motorized deck. It has no ATGM planes, and that's why you saw me engage with a couple of the F5s. So the only way that I can get these guys down is by ATGM vehicles or by getting my teammates to help, because my infantry is never going to get in range, especially if there's Spetsnaz GRU nearby, whereas I can get the jump on these T-80Us. Over here they're pushing in a lot of Spetsnaz GRU, so a lot of this recon infantry. Not sure why he's using a group of 3, but probably for a bit more effect. Whereas a couple of BMP-3s are backing them up. Now I lost sight of them. We're going to switch this to neutral, because I want to see what other units they had. They got a couple of OSAs here in the back. They have one command unit there, 20 VDV, so 2 cards, or 2 groups if you will. And they just wiped out everything I had. I had support from Buck here on the left with 1 leopard. But of course a leopard versus VDV 90s is not exactly a good idea, so he's retreating that. Over here, all the infantry that I had got wiped out. The T80 used to carry that, the Motostrelki 90s, a couple of BMP 3s again, T72A here and there. We're still leading by +4, so I was thinking, well, maybe if we just hold long enough, we can still win this. If we just maintain this advantage for long enough, we can get that point value. Until they found my CV, which was inevitable. And I left it here intentionally. I knew it was going to die anyway. If I had retreated it over here, it would not have been any use. Whereas over here, it was still generating quite a bit of points from this command zone. And with that I was hoping to get a little bit more of a head start, so that my team would still win, even as I was getting wiped out here. Flashpoint's trying to help me as well with some fighters, and so is Buck, because they realize that this area is the main engagement. And you can see that in the middle here, they are doing some attacks, but not that many. They have a couple of infantry here, some Specialny Jetnotki, some Concours, T72S, OSAs, but not really a large presence, especially not in Lima. They're not even going there. Whereas here, this is different. They're just trying to push through this terrain, capture all of this, or at least eventually, because right now they still haven't captured the terrain. And I'm trying to push them back with a couple of Volkskamjäger, trying to get this BMP 3. But my Volkskamjäger get a little finicky and try not, or don't really want to enter this block of buildings. So the BMP makes it off as the Volkskamjäger engage the Spetsnaz GRU. Jaguar from Flashpoint missed the tank unfortunately, and there's not a lot we can do against these guys. Flashpoint's trying to help here with some more Fusiliers, but there is just not a lot we can do. Especially this infantry was very soft here, and they kept bringing in bombing runs. Now since my initial force got wiped out, I didn't exactly have anything that I could use here. So I had no AA, nothing that I could bring in to support. And that's why you're going to see these MiG-29S's keep doing bombing runs on my infantry. And rather effective as well. So here you go. That was the bombing run, wiped out my infantry completely. I'm trying to bring in a couple of more infantry here later on. Let's see, I think they should be coming in now. That was more of those Volkskamjäger, which I'm going to try to push across this river so that they can sneak up on the T-80Us. But you can see just how effective these things are. Now this is also due to the fact that at this point I didn't exactly have any kind of AT. I didn't bring any tanks in here, because the main tanks that I can bring are Leopard 1A5s, which are never going to stand up to a T-80U. These things have a ton of armor, very good mobility, they got the reflex missile, they got a great main gun. So they are very nice tanks all around. Here's the infantry, trying to bring these guys in. But I'm a little hesitant, because I don't exactly know where those T-80Us are. They keep popping out and in of cover. So the one moment they're visible, you can see ATGM planes trying to get a shot, the next moment they're not. So I'm guessing, okay, I'm just gonna hold here. Maybe they're gonna pop out again, and maybe they'll have the range to kill those tanks. Unfortunately, that didn't exactly happen. And by now Red 4 was leading by +4, even as we'd built up an advantage of 270 points. Over here on the left, Flashpoint is trying to push into another zone, it seems. With a couple of Fusiliers, some Warriors, Stormers, Challenger Marksmen, and I think that the tank that he had over here got destroyed. And he's now trying to manage 2 fronts as well. He's trying to manage this side, and he's trying to help me over here. You can see that Flashpoint has some Fusiliers here. Buck is trying to help me out. Flashpoint even has some Gurkhas. I'm trying to bring in a recon, but they couldn't find it. And let's see. Buck is smoking these things so that my infantry can get across, but I realized this way too late. And we're actually providing more or less some cover, or some extra cover, to the T-80U, because now we're sure we cannot see it. Now I thought that this was a great push by Red Force, so that's why I wanted to show it to you. This was clearly a well-rehearsed strategy, and this initial push, where they wiped out pretty much one player, me, made it so that they could now, at their leisure, capture any command zone. Because with 2 players here, 1 player from their team could start to engage these zones or just focus on command vehicles. And with that, he would have to face probably no players here, because everybody was focusing their attention on this zone. We were all too busy trying to save our forces and trying to hold this zone before they pushed into Alpha. And they then made use of that advantage, pushed in command vehicles, and now they're leading by +6. You're going to see that this game is going to go over pretty soon. There's only 4 minutes left on the clock. Getting some more infantry in here, but at this point there's really not a lot we can do. We can try to capture Delta, we can try to capture Echo, maybe even Hotel, but we would need 300 points to do that at least. And some time, and time is something we don't have. Because they're leading by +6, so you want to get those things into position as soon as possible to neutralize that advantage. If you don't, you're just going to keep losing points until they finally win. Over here, we still had those tanks. Let's see exactly what they had. 1 tank survived, the other one was probably killed. They got a couple of motor Strelkies which are blocking off this approach here, because it's very hard to get a foothold here. Maybe with some bombers to blow this stuff up. But there were also some OSAs, which were out of ammo, something I didn't know. You had a Tunguska here, Mi-8s, T-72, command infantry, and some Spetsnaz. So his presence here was actually not that big. But in a situation like this, where you lost most of your forces and you're trying to scramble all of your income to get more of your units on the map, made it so that I really didn't know what to do. Especially with a motorized deck, there was not a lot that I felt I could do. Because a motorized deck needs cover. I could use this cover if I can get across. Reconnaissance here would not have been ideal, because with recon it's very hard to see further than standard infantry can, especially in a forest. So reconnaissance here wouldn't have been useful either, and since motorized also relies on the recon tab, it would have been nice to be able to hold that zone, or to use some of the recon infantry. Pushing in some more Volkskamjäger, and you're going to see that these MiGs are trying to get a bombing run done on my Volkskamjäger. Unfortunately for them, they miss completely. Volkskamjäger were out of there, and these planes get out of there unchallenged. My RBS-70 Mark IIs fire at them, but score no hits, I think. Volkskamjäger fired at the T-80U, got 1 hit off, and then the thing starts to fall back, going outside the range of my forces, so that it's actually getting into safety. And over here we got more of those MiG-29Ss coming in, bombing my infantry and the infantry that Buck was going to bring in down into submission. You can see the bombing coming here. I'm trying to get out at the last possible moment, which made it through, but everything's now panicked in here, this entire force. But after a couple of those bombing runs, I went, okay, I'm going to have to keep an eye on the sky, because otherwise they're just going to keep bombing me. They're still leading by +6, and now they have a 346 point value over our 270. You can see one of my command vehicles over here, which is going to move towards Delta, set up there, and limit that income to +4. But still, it's not exactly the amount of command units that we really needed. We needed a lot more. Flashpoint's trying to push in here. It's pretty surprising how far this Puma is making it through. I hadn't exactly seen what he's doing here, but he's making it all the way to Oscar, towards their spawn. If we would have done this earlier with a couple of helicopters, it might have worked. But then again, that's also It's very easy to say that afterwards. So what can you do when you're faced with a situation like this? I've been giving it a good deal of thought, and I just don't know. A motorized deck does not really have the AT capability, so maybe I should not have been using a motorized deck here. I was just eager to try it out. A tank deck might work, although the enemy was using a couple of general decks, USSR general decks. I could not push in with helicopters because I didn't have those, and they had the OSAs to back them up. So I could not do a lot against the T-80Us, and then the infantry on infantry backed up by their T-80U was at the disadvantage of my Volksgrimjäger. Planes I didn't exactly have, so I don't think that we could have done anything differently there. I could have retreated all the way back here, just below this ridgeline, where the tank cannot fire directly down, and then try to do skirmishes over this ridgeline. That might have worked, but I think that sooner rather than later I've been bombed into submission by all those MiG-29Ss which keep doing sorties on my units. It's not exactly an advantage to hold this position either, because with it they can capture Bravo, India, Mike if it's unchallenged by my teammates, and then get that advantage going. So I don't really see what I could or should have done differently here. But if you have any good insights on that, please let me know in a comment, because I really want to have a counter towards this, and I just don't know what it is yet. Maybe, as I mentioned, a general deck would do a little bit better. Maybe an armored push or an armored deck could have prevented this. I'm not entirely sure, but you just don't see this coming. And that's exactly what Red 4 had in mind, of course. Now, we were fighting a clan, that much is sure, and these guys were very, very good. I'm thinking that this thing was rehearsed, so they did it more often, and with that it gave them the advantage of having practiced this, so their decks were attuned to each other, whereas ours were not. Their gameplay was coordinated by Teamspeak, ours was not, so I gotta get more advantages. I'm thinking of starting an own group of players. I'm going to maybe start up a Teamspeak to get my own Teamspeak server up so we can all play together on that Teamspeak and coordinate pushes next time. So if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll send you a message as soon as the Teamspeak server is up, if and when. For now, let's just skip this up so you can see just the amount of forces that I lost, which is pretty incredible. I scored 445 points. That was the 2 choppers at the beginning of the game, some infantry here and there, and a Tunguska. I think that's all that I killed. Unfortunately, the kill list is cut off in this replay, so I cannot check that. I lost 1,200 units, or at least 1,200 points. My allies tried to help me. Flashpoint did okay. He had 1,500 points in kills if you round it up, and 1,300 losses. And Buck, who was helping me as well on my flank, lost more forces than he killed. On the other hand, Red 4 also got a few more losses than kills, but for them it was definitely worth it, because with it they were able to capture that terrain. They were able to capture the zones, and with the zones in hand they could then push on to the other zones, or just sit it out and wait for their income to go up to 500. This guy had a very, very good rating, and so did this guy, Illuminatus Fighter. So again, if you have any idea on what I could have done differently, what I could have done better in this situation with this deck, because keep in mind it's a Norwegian motorized deck, then please let me know in the comments down below, because I just don't really have a good counter for it. If you liked watching this video, please hit like and just make sure that it doesn't happen to you. Get your recon out early, see what the enemy is up to, and make sure that this is a lesson for you that it doesn't happen to you. With that, it's the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have any specific videos or wargame guides that you would like me to make, leave a comment down below asking precisely what kind of video you would like to see, because you guys are the reason I'm still making these videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time.